Welcome to today's episode of Between Neens and Deens. My name is Nina, and I'm joined by my best friend, partner, and baby daddy, Dayon.
And together, we're a couple of 20-something-year-olds just trying to navigate this whole first-time parenting thing.
So we're laying it all out there and talking about all the things you wish your parents told you about love, sex, and happiness. So we just found out that our mic actually broke, so this episode might be a little bit fuzzier than ones in the past, but we ordered a new mic. Same one. I don't know if that was the move, but we ordered a new mic and it should be coming, so bear with us. Content is still just as great though.
Yeah, we didn't realize that X broke it in the last episode.
X, we can't have nice things, man.
He got startled and then he ran over and tugged on the cable and then the whole thing fell apart.
Yeah, so now it's very precariously placed and nobody can touch it.
So this week we're going to talk about interracial dating. It's actually been one that a lot of people DM'd us about. They wanted to hear about. And it's funny because we've kind of ignored it in a sense.
We didn't ignore it. I think we just needed to kind of figure out how we wanted to frame it.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people that messaged, I noticed that a lot of you guys out there, young Asian females, a lot of the questions is kind of about how your parents allow you to date somebody that's of a different race and kind of how that conversation goes with your parents. And so I think because it was so focused on family, it was kind of hard for me to conceptualize what we would talk about, because for me, I'm not going to say that it was always easy with my parents, but obviously by the time I brought Dayon home, then they were very much yeah, cool, we have no issues with him. So it kind of to me feels like we didn't have to struggle very much. But to be fair, there's a lot to unpack when it comes to ourselves and who we see ourselves dating, who we've dated over the years. It's not just about our parents and accepting them. I think that's a very small piece of it. I think the larger topic that we kind of want to talk about is with ourselves and who we thought we should be with. And the parent stuff comes in as well.
Yeah, I think when I first heard that question, it was I specifically thought of just mine and your relationship and how at that time my parents were already so accepting, you know what I mean? But then I forgot about all the steps that brought it to that point.
Yeah, all the people you dated
exactly,
in the past.
because my first girlfriend, it wasn't necessarily the case, and leading up to my next girlfriend and things like that. So yeah, it'll be fun. I'll talk more about the past as well.
Yeah, so let's start with when you first started dating or even having crushes on people, who you thought you should be with.
That's the thing, growing up, I would always look at my family as inspiration, my parents, right? And so they've obviously, they're Serbian. So I think
Serbian, yeah.
They're both Serbian. Well, actually, technically my dad's Montenegrin, but that
both
recently,
Yugoslavian.
Yeah, that became its own country in 2005. So, but it was just growing up, and I think I've always expected that I would be married to a Serbian girl, and that's what I expected. But growing up in the school that I'm in and just seeing what I'm attracted to, and yeah, I think my first crush was a Chinese girl. I thought she was the cutest.
What age is this?
This was probably grade 3 or 4. Probably grade 3, to be honest. Yeah, I think it was grade 3. And I was so nervous. And this is the funniest thing, because I was so nervous and I really wanted her to come to my birthday party at my house. And the saddest part is she was the only girl that I invited. And she came, and my mom kept her company. I thought she was so cute. But yeah, it was interesting. I think that's when my mom was oh, so that's what you're into. Do you know what I mean? It was it was different for her, especially because they grew up in a place where it's all just one nationality, really.
Also, I should point out that at least for me growing up in America, I'm sure there's Serbians in America. I just don't really know any, and I didn't really know any growing up. But in Vancouver, it's so different. There are so many Serbians here. So I feel yeah, for you to say you saw yourself dating a Serbian, I think me when I first moved to Vancouver, I'd be that's so hard, because where do you find them? But there's a lot of Serbians here in Vancouver, for anybody that isn't familiar with the demographics.
And that's the thing, and then because I really wanted that, I tried to push that on myself. So when we would go to all those because there was a lot of cultural events happening at the church. And then my parents used to take me there when I was young, and I thought these are the type of people I should be with. And I tried to force it on myself, but it never really worked out. They were never.
Were you attracted to
They're
Serbian
beautiful
girls?
women, extremely beautiful women. I'm attracted to them, but when it comes down to having things in common, like absolutely nothing. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
in the back of my head, I always thought like there must be a Serbian girl out there that was kind of, you know, brought up the same way as me, you know, brought in from Serbia, grew up in Canada, and was like really infatuated with like hip hop and like street culture
And I'm
and all
sure
that
there
stuff.
are. You just haven't found her.
I just haven't found her. Do you know what I mean? I probably won't at this point.
You might find her and it's gonna
I
be
might
sad
find her,
heartbreak. Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like I just couldn't find it. I just found like, you know, I was more attracted to certain people that I had more things in common with at school. For the most part, happened to be like, you know, Asian girls, black girls, and those are the type of girls that I brought home to mom. And it was interesting. I think like it took all of those like exes and things for them to get used to the idea that like, you know, I'm not gonna be with a Serbian girl. And it's not that I'm not attracted to them or that I have anything necessarily against them. I just feel most of the Serbian women that I've met is not someone that I have something in common with. Do you know what I mean? It's not someone I can see myself spending the rest of my life with.
Like in terms of like interest and cultural
Exactly.
things.
Yeah. I mean, like, cause also I'm not like a very Serbian guy. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really listen to Serbian music. I don't like, you know what I mean? I feel like a lot of the Serbian people that live here in Vancouver bump Serbian music nonstop. You know what I mean? Or like very
I didn't even know that
nationalistic.
there was like Serbian club nights.
Yeah, there
here.
is.
Like
in
I didn't
Vancouver,
realize
yeah,
that. I didn't
yeah.
realize that you guys
And that-
did it like that.
And that's the thing. If you look at my brother, he's very much like that, going to those events, and you know, like it's all like Serbian vibes. Even like the funny thing is now, like his partner is Turkish now, or she's Iranian with Turkish descent. But like even they be bumping Serbian music together. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like she shows him music
All
from
you
like
play
her
for me is like
area.
old oldies.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
even like
I'll
current.
bump the oldies, and I think like for me the oldies is just so nostalgic because that's like when I was a kid, that's what my parents were listening to. So I think like it's more of that comfort, you know what I mean, of like
Yeah.
feeling like a kid again and being at home. But yeah, so I feel like it's from preparing my family. Do you know what I mean? Like with like showing them like I like this girl, I have a crush on this girl, and like them realizing that yeah, that's just me, and you know, and at the end of the day, it's not ever about like for me, it's not about their ethnicity. It's just about like do we connect well? Do you know what I mean? And like when I met you, the connection was so strong, and so it didn't matter like what your ethnicity was, and by the time I introduced you to my parents, they were already used to it at that
Yeah.
point. So there was never that cultural issue in regards to bringing you home.
Have you ever been hit with you have yellow fever? Have you ever been confronted by that?
You know what? I have. Yeah. I have by
people
people.
you've been dating? Or okay, no, sorry, you were gonna say.
No, not by people I've been dating though. Because I mean, I don't know, speak from your experience. Like do you feel like that like when I'm with you that you have that sense of like
Well,
he's just with me because
let's
of yellow
talk
fever?
about yellow fever because
Do you feel that way?
No, I don't feel that way, and I wouldn't be with you if I felt that way
Yeah.
because I didn't really fine tune that skill to identify somebody that has yellow fever until I got to college. I think when I was in high school, it was just kind of like, you're the pretty Asian and like blah, blah, blah.
It's like when you're fetishized, right?
Yeah, 100%. And like I encountered maybe like some people where they really like it's so hard to even describe, and I've tried to describe this to my friends before that aren't Asian, but it's just like the way that they look at you, the way that they talk to you, like it's just I can't even really put my finger on what it is, but it's over and over and over again. Like people with yellow fever, it's just the way that they're interacting with you. It just if you feel objectified, but in like a way that's just like another level on top of like the way women are already objectified.
Is it like when they want to put like sweet and sour sauce on you or like
So
soy
gross.
sauce?
Via, please stop that. So bad. If you want people to think you have yellow fever, carry on.
I'm speaking from your certain experience that you told me.
Yeah, but I don't think that
And then also apart from a Kanye line where he's like, I'm eating Asian, all I need is sweet and sour sauce.
Yeah, okay. Well, okay, so yeah, I mean, like, that contributes to it 100%. Like, Asian women are so fetishized. And it's just, like, yeah, once I got to college, I met a lot of guys. Especially, like, in Vancouver, there's a lot of white dudes trying to date Asian girls. And, I mean, you're one of them. But, it's very different. It's different between somebody that is, like, okay, like, I tend to be attracted to Asian women. And, you know, like, you actually see me as a person that has like layers and you care about my interests, whereas it's like you'll just hook up with any Asian girl because you just fetishize Asian women, you know, like there's a very fine line, but I just like it's a feeling. And that doesn't sound scientific or it doesn't sound like anything concrete, but like it's a feeling and it's strong enough for me to know. Like,
and I've seen it. I've seen people that like
Yeah.
really fetishize Asian and have that like yellow fever, and it's really strong, and it disgusts me
but
as
it's
well.
yeah, but it's not like, yeah, that's the thing, is that it's not overt even. Like, I mean, for some people it is, but a lot of times it's very subtle, and it's just something that you pick up on. And over the years I've been able to pick up on it really well, and I'm just like, yeah, no, pass. Like, miss me with all of that. Like, I don't want any part of that. So
Yeah, like for me, I was never really trying to be like, I just want an Asian girl. You know what I mean? Because like I was open to everything. It's just like, it just happened. I think like the other part too is like Vancouver, like everyone in my surrounding are Asians. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like, it's not like, oh, I'm chasing all these different Asian girls. It's just kind of how it happens to be. Statistically speaking, like, you know, I bump into more Asian girls and then become attracted to them. Do you know what I mean? And like, and that's not to say that I've only dated Asian girls. Like, I've dated multiple different, you know, type of ethnicities. I even dated a Serbian girl. You know what I mean? Like, and like tried, you know, everything. But yeah, I wouldn't say specifically that I have yellow fever. It just kind of happened that way due to statistics. But like what you said, where I've been accused of having yellow fever, that's only like with like my friends and like people from like, especially people from the Serbian community. Because like my brother and his friends, like they're all like old Serbs and stuff, and like anytime I would get invited to like an event, it would be like my ex girl and then like my next girl, and they would both be Asian. Do you know what I mean? And then like and the thing is too is like these old Serbs, I'm not gonna say all of them, but a good amount of them can't tell the difference.
yeah, it's happened to me where they're like, we've met before. I'm like, 100% no, we haven't.
Exactly,
That was the
it's so
last one.
savage. Yeah. Or one of the girls just straight up said like, oh, a new one. I like this one. And I'm like, how the fuck can you talk to that about these human beings that I love? Anyways, it's fucking savage. So, yeah, I mean, and then I've had like people that I play ball with, like when they see that I have an Asian girlfriend, they're like, oh, you like them Asians, huh? And I'm just like, it's really not like that. Like, it's really just about, I like this person. You know what I mean? It's not about like, oh, you like them Asians, you know? Or like, you know what I mean? Like, but like, would anyone say anything if I was dating a Serbian girl? That's the thing, right? Like, that's where like interracial dating does have an issue, because it's like, if you're seen with something that's of a different ethnicity, it's like, oh, you like that. As opposed to like, it's just something that's so normal. You know what I mean? That should be normal, because we do live in like a multicultural country.
Yeah, no, it's like, even though I feel like people have been able to like marry whoever they want and like date whoever they want, and in a international city like Vancouver, it's very common to see interracial dating, super common, especially among like white and Asian people. But yeah, for me, like, I think it's kind of the same with you, where it's statistically speaking, or it's like what you're surrounded by. Like, growing up, I was in San Francisco, and there's a lot of Latinos there, and everyone that I had a crush on fully through like elementary school was Latino. And it's actually funny, because the first guy that I ever had a crush on in kindergarten, I found out that this kid had the same birthday as me, and I was like head over heels in love with him, and I decided to have a crush on him from kindergarten through 5th grade, just solely because we had the same birthday. But like, after that one crush, everybody else was Latino, and it wasn't like, you know, I was drawn to the culture or anything. Like, I was too young. But I think like that was just who I was attracted to. Like, yeah, I actually had crushes on like pretty much every race. There were no like white kids really at my school, so it wasn't until I went to middle school, because it was like a very, very white school, and like that was just so different for me. You know, like socioeconomically, it was.
But do you
so
feel like
different.
it was more because you didn't have anything in common with them? Like,
Yeah,
because
for me,
because I personally feel like if you're gonna have a crush on someone, there must be some kind of connection.
Yes,
there.
but also
It
because
goes beyond looks.
I knew that all those boys wouldn't like me. And at that point, I'd just come into like this really wealthy, private, all-girls Catholic school, and I came from like a public school in one of the worst neighborhoods in San Francisco. So like, it was like I was so taken out of my element, and I was meeting people so far different from anything that I had ever known. You know, like, there were cute boys. Like, there was like a boy that I had a huge crush on, but I also like knew that he would never like me back. I mean, middle school is like it's a time where you become very insecure, I think, just because you're going through puberty, all these things. So I really started to like bag on myself and be like, I'm just so different. I'm not on the same level as these girls, and so how could these boys ever like me? And it wasn't until high school that I actually like met white people that like I could kind of relate to more, like were my friends. And still private, so very affluent as well, very different socioeconomically still. But I think at this point now I had kind of learned how to talk to wealthier people, whiter people. And it sounds so weird to analyze it now, and like I love the friends that I made like in high school, you know, like I don't mean to talk about it in a way where it's like othering them or othering myself, and I learned to, you know, connect and relate. But there was always a part of me that felt so different. But it's really interesting because people saw me as so similar, like from the outside. Like I remember I went to a seminar where it was like all the kids in my high school, which was a very small amount, that were like the first in their family to go to college. And when I showed up, like the other kids were like, what the fuck are you doing here, you know, like, and I was like, what do you mean, like I'm the first in my family? They're like, no, like I thought you were moneyed. And I was like, what? It's like I didn't realize that my perception, you know, like the way that I dressed, the way that I talked, like all of that, and it probably came from like being groomed in middle school, you know. All of that made this idea of me so different from who I actually was. So I had crushes on them, but I also deep down knew that, again, they might not like me, and even if they do, there's no real possible future because our families would be so different. And like, you know, this is also a lot of internalized, I don't want to say hate, but let's just say that for now, like a lot of internalized hate where it's like like
resentment.
Yeah, not even resentment. It's just like I had this idea of myself and I had this idea of them, and we're so different. And a lot of it, more than race, has to do with class. Like, yeah, it really doesn't have anything to do with race, because like you're a white person that, like, when I met you, I was like, oh, there's so many similarities between our families and our experience because you immigrated here, your parents have an accent when they speak. Essentially, refugees from war, you know, like come from war-torn countries. And like, that's very similar to my experience. That's the same as my experience, except that we're Asian and you're white. And so the people that I was going to school with, you know, like their families had lived in San Francisco for decades, you know, like it was like white. And like, I could never imagine my parents and their parents sitting down at a dinner table and me not feeling incredibly uncomfortable, and my parents ever really being able to like not feel judged by these other people, you know, which is something that like I know that my parents always dealt with and like kind of had a fear about. Like they always felt like they couldn't go to my school events, they couldn't like mingle with the other dads. Like I remember I went to like a father-daughter dance, and my dad really didn't want to go because he was like, I don't want to talk to these guys that just are like doctors and like talk about golfing and all this shit because it's not relatable to him. And so like my first boyfriend, he was Mexican, and his dad was a doctor and his mom was a university professor. So like already like crazy. That, like, yeah. So it's interesting because when my mom met his parents, you know, like of course like they're nice and like they can talk and stuff, but my mom, English isn't her first language, obviously. But when my mom met his grandma, who is like in a very similar immigrant type situation as her, like she came from Mexico and they both speak with an accent, like they really clicked, like they connected over food, over family, like those were the important things to them, you know. I don't know, I think also who you have a crush on when you're younger really changes as you get older, because when you're younger all you care about is like physical attraction, you know, like this person's pretty. Whereas as you get older, that's when I realized like I actually started to think about, would my parents get along with them? Like those things didn't matter, you know, in elementary school, and like because at that point none of, you know, you don't think about any of those things, you don't think long term. And then I think the older that I got, the more I was like, okay, it's really just a matter of like, do I see my life and their life meshing? Will they understand where I came from? I think that was the biggest thing for me, is like somebody to understand
the culture.
Yeah, the
if
culture.
You think about like
actually
spending together, you know what I mean, like spending your time together. Like for instance, like us, like how we're pretty much stuck with each other forever now. So
but also like when we met each other, like I really didn't feel like I had to explain much to you. Like I told you, you know, where I came from and stuff, but I didn't have to explain it or defend myself, or like I think that's really what I was looking for in the end. Like I genuinely feel like if I was gonna date somebody, like, I don't know, for some reason Mitt Romney's popping in my head, but like Mitt Romney white, you know, like there would be so much about my lived experience that I feel like I would have to explain. Like, yeah, maybe that's just my own prejudices and, you know, like that's just me not giving somebody a chance.
Yeah.
But I think in my own experience, like that's what it's been like.
Yeah, I think it's about like having an openness to learn as well. And I mean, you took some time to learn about Serbia as much as I was shoving it down your throat.
You shoved it.
But for me, I thought it was important for you to know about my culture as much as possible. And I tried to study as much about Vietnam as well. I guess what I want to get into now is have you experienced any kind of microaggressions or like certain remarks being made within your interracial relationships? Or just some ignorant things that people might have said to you,
Yeah,
and your
like not
partner.
now I'm really trying to think, but the first thing that comes to mind, I don't really know if this answers your question or qualifies, but the first thing that comes to mind is when I was dating my first ex, who was Mexican. This was when we were in high school. I remember, I mean, we had a very interesting relationship. So to begin with, his mom already didn't like me because it was my fault. I broke up with him freshman year, broke his heart, and his mom didn't trust me. But regardless, when we started dating in junior year, so 2 years later, I was like, does your mom like me now? And he was like, yeah, no, my mom, like, she likes you. I mean, you're still kind of, like, probationary, but, like, she likes you. Like, she likes that, like, your eyes are bigger. And I was like, what?
Oh.
And it was like, you know, like
Yeah, it's
in
kind
her,
of a
yeah,
hit.
in her saying that, it was because I do have like a crease in my eyes. Like it's not like I don't have a monolid, which is like very common in Asians. And so in that moment, I was very like, oh, okay, like, yeah, she likes something about me. And like, oh, okay, yeah, like my eyes are different. Like I'm not as Asian, you know, like, you know, because that's a lot of internalized racism that I was dealing with at that age. But, you know, like there's things like that.
I'm gonna tell you one situation that happened to me that I thought was the most blasphemous.
I already know this situation, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you already know this one, but I was with my ex-girlfriend in Miami and we were eating at a pancake house or whatever. And so there's this older white male, looks like a war veteran, sitting next to me, and he has a Filipino partner. And she leaves to go to the bathroom, and actually in the same time my partner leaves to go to the bathroom as well. And he looks over to me and says, "Where's your Asian from?" And yo, I was so vexed, bro. The first, like just the question was so blasphemous that I just looked at
Yeah.
him and I said, "Canada," and he was like, "Oh, but like which part of like Asia is she from?" And I was like, she was born in Canada, but she's Chinese." And then he's just like, "Oh, okay, mine's from the Philippines," and I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And I'm like, I really didn't want to talk to this guy at this point. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was just so upset by that. And then both our partners come back, and then they just start talking, and then like I'm forced to talk to this guy now, knowing the blasphemous shit he just told me.
And I'm
Where's
pretty
your
sure that
Asian
your ex
from?
wouldn't have wanted to talk to him if she
If
then
she knew
knew.
that's what he
Yeah.
said. Yeah, I had to stand up. I'm like, she's from Canada, bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, she's a Canadian. I
Yeah.
had
I
to stand
mean,
up.
yeah, there's a lot of that. But I think that's what I'm saying is that it's like it is very expected. Like I remember even now we're gonna get into parents, but I remember growing up, my mom would be like, yeah, like date somebody that's like white or Asian. And I'm like, why are those my two options, you know? And I think that I don't think that that's a unique experience for me, you know? Like I think a lot of young Asian girls are probably told that as well, like that those are the acceptable races that you can date. And I just like had to break it to my mom. I was like, yeah, nope, first boyfriend, he's neither of those things. But like by the time that we started dating, like my parents really didn't care. And I don't really know why that is, but they just didn't. And so it wasn't like, yeah, only date Asians and white people, and it was like they were so like strict about it. But you know, there are like some passive things that like my mom will say. Like she'll be
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, like if your like baby looks more like Dayon, like it was specifically a girl. Like if our baby is a girl and it looks more like Dayon, aka white, those babies are like so pretty, you know. But it's like, but what if it just looks like me? You know, like, and that I think that's
I think you're
very
beautiful,
common.
B.
Thank you. But I think that's very, very common. Like, if you're having a mixed child, like, you want them to look more white because they'll be prettier. And, like, I don't think that's just unique to Asian communities, but I can't really speak for other ones. But yeah, there's something about, like, whiteness that is so valued.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about the Asian community for days and how, pale skin is,
Oh yeah,
appraised over
100%.
there.
My
Do you
mom
know
was
what I
like,
mean?
"Why are you getting so dark?" And I'm like, "I like being tan."
Yeah, and that's the culture over there, and I mean, it's not right, but I mean that's just kind of how it is.
And it's not just Asia. I mean, that's colorism. That's everywhere. Who else did I brought home? I didn't bring home, but I told my parents I was dating this guy when I was in college that was like half black and half white, and my mom had
How
reservations,
was that
but I
received?
I think it was a lot less to do with the fact that he was half black and half white, and more to do with the fact that he was 9 years my senior.
Yeah.
So
See, that's the thing too.
I can't really gauge that.
Yeah, that's the thing too. So I did date a black girl, and she's like a darker skinned black girl, and you know I loved her, and I told my mother that, and I think she also had some kind of like I don't want to put my parents on blast because I know they do listen, but like you know there was times where my mom was kind of like not really accepting of it, but also to be fair, like there was certain other things that I think she was also against. She was also quite older than me, and she was divorced, and I think that was like certain things that my mother was afraid of. She's like, she's trying to trap you and all these things, and then she would try to push like other girls at me saying like you should be with these women, do you know what I mean, all you know white women with dark hair that look like my mom, you know what I'm saying, because that's what she finds beautiful. Because she loves herself, which is great.
Yeah, people are... That's what they say. Like, people are attracted to, like, people that look like themselves, but we look nothing like each other. Which is, like,
it's more
so funny
just
to
about...
me.
It's more about just how, like, we just have really great times together. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we just...
But, I mean, I was attracted to you, and I'm sure a lot of that has to do with, like, my conditioning. So, like, this is... We'll talk...
For me, I was mad attracted to your outfit, and I was like, ooh, she know how to dress.
Yeah.
Ooh, she cute.
Yeah, for me, too. It was, like, the fashion. I was like, nobody knows how to dress well in Vancouver. I was, like, so rare to find a guy that cares about fashion, but... I think for me, it just has, I think for both of us, it has a lot less to do with race and a lot more to do with, speaking for myself, class and lived experience and like family, if that makes sense. Immigrant status.
Yeah, I guess, and that's the other thing, that it's really important, especially if you're planning to be with someone, you know, seriously for the rest of your life. Like, it's really important that you can see that your parents can get along. And I feel... If
that's important to you. If your family is important to you, yeah, then 100%. Like... And
that was something that I didn't really take in with my last relationship. I kind of, like, separated that. I was like, I'm attracted to this person, I like this person. And, you know, after meeting her parents, I saw that there are a lot of differences with mine, and I never thought that it would lead to an issue, but that is literally all we argued about, is how different our families are, and like how that's like a deep-rooted misunderstanding in regards to just life in general and how we view it. And so, yeah, when I met you and, you know, talked about your lived experiences with your family and how similar it is with mine, regardless of race, like they have like similar, you know, things that they went through and similar ways of viewing life. So I knew that it will work out in that sense, you know what I mean? Because like family is important for you, family important for me, and for our parents as well, you know what I mean? So like those are things that are important, and not necessarily like ethnicity, you know what I mean? Like it's just about like, do they have shared values, and do you feel like they can kind of, you know, get along, and that goes down to us, you know what I mean? Like how do we get along? So like when you were saying about like self expectations of like who you feel that you should be with. And for the longest time, I actually did think that, like, I'm going to marry a Serbian girl. Like, I'm supposed to be with a Serbian girl. And I made the biggest mistake was with my first girlfriend. Literally before leaving for Serbia, like, I told her, months before leaving for Serbia, I told her that I really have feelings for you, but I see myself marrying a Serbian girl.
I don't even know why you would say something like that.
Because I was fucking young and an idiot, right? So I left for Serbia and my ass got cheated on.
Yeah, so if you guys listened to the earlier podcast episode where we talked about cheating and Dan's experience with it, you know, he missed this super key information.
I mean, there's just shit that I would say, you know what I mean?
But like, you're young. I said some dumbass
shit. It wasn't an argument. It was just like an understanding. And like, she was like, oh, you know what I mean? But like, we were both so young, so it was never like something that we really thought into. I never thought that it would lead to me getting cheated on, or like me, like, you know, and wanting to take back what I said. Away. Yeah. And then I guess like, you know, I had many girlfriends in between, and actually from my last relationship, because the breakup felt like it was it was just because of such a cultural difference, because like how her family was raised, how my family is, you know what I mean? Like, it felt like such a cultural difference that after that breakup, I was like, man, I just need to find myself a Serbian girl. And then I hit you up, and I was like, fuck. You know what I mean? And I was
back on my bullshit.
Right, back on my bullshit. But it worked out, because I feel like the Vietnamese culture and Serbian culture are pretty damn similar.
Yeah, there are a lot of
what we've been through.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about communism on our first date.
We did.
And very different opinions from both our families. We won't get into that now. Yeah. But other than that, like, I think just a lot of ways in which, even as we got to know each other, like, I didn't realize how similar we were, you know? And, like, I mean, this obviously goes back into, like, kind of conversations that we had earlier in a different podcast episode about privilege, but obviously you being a white male, me being an Asian female, we have a lot of privileges, and that's probably why we were able to connect on a lot of different levels, you know? And, like, a lot of, I think, what we experienced has a lot to do with, like, class struggle, but, like, you know, it wasn't a whole lot of difference in terms of, like, our race and our experience. Like, obviously I dealt with, like, fetishization and, like, microaggressions and, you know, like, people saying dumbass shit like you're pretty for an Asian, you know, maybe stuff that you didn't experience. But yeah, I think that a lot of me growing up, I felt like there was an expectation of who I would date, and I think that who I was attracted to kind of fell in line with that, so I didn't have that much conflict, you know? Like, and even though my parents told me, like, yeah, here are your options, I just kind of ignored that and did whatever I wanted to do. And I think that that is kind of my privilege as well, is that because it's so layered, but it's, like, because Asian women tend to date outside of their race, that it's, like, not, there isn't a whole lot of conflict there, you know? Like, I can kind of date whoever and feel like socially it's pretty acceptable. A lot of people wanted to know about what it was like to be in an interracial relationship, kind of what the difficulties were, if your parents had issues, like, accepting it, and just, I think, like, what our experiences have been.
Yeah.
So, I mean, since dating, there haven't been, that's a thing. So, like, there isn't a huge cultural clash. I think, you know, should you be from Serbia, like, really, like, culturally Serbian, and me be culturally Vietnamese, I'm sure that there would be cultural clashes, you know? But, like, me growing up American and you growing up Canadian, there isn't a whole lot of culture clash there. The one thing that I think maybe we did struggle with is, in the beginning of our relationship, we each have different languages. Then there would be times where you could communicate with your family and your parents in a different language, and I don't understand it, but I get a very strong sense of what's being said. And
yeah, like, whenever you were upset, my mom would talk to me in Serbian, like, why is she upset? What
yeah,
happened?
and at first I wouldn't understand because I'm like, what is this language? But then now I can, I mean, I get a sense of tone, so I can figure it out pretty easily, what's kind of being said. So I think, like, maybe that's the one thing that we definitely did argue about, you know, because, like, obviously we aren't dating around my parents, and we only really go see my parents once, twice a year. And so for me, I was like, I wouldn't put you in a situation to feel uncomfortable by speaking Vietnamese with my parents, or, you know, my mom saying something to me in Vietnamese and me replying in English. I'm not gonna act like I know the language like that, but like, I'm not gonna put you in a position to be uncomfortable around that language and, like, feel like you're being talked about. So, like, why would you do that to me? So I think, like, that was a really big discussion for us, and it came up again and again. And, you know, like, that's not really to anybody's fault, but it's a situation that made me feel excluded and, like, uncomfortable. Yeah. So I feel like that was something that we had to address. And I mean, one, I pick it up a lot better now, but I also asked you to either loop me in the conversation or, you know, like, not do it, because it just, it's
something my mom loves to do.
Yeah, but it's just, like, I mean, I get it because you have the available option to speak in another language, but I think realizing how other people feel in that situation.
Yeah. I mean, she's used that trick multiple times, and it's great. I mean, like, when just almost in every situation, like, if she's haggling, you know, and then she needs me to do something that she doesn't want the other person to know. Everyone does that, yeah. It's like a code. It's like a secret language. My mom will do that
to me too, you know, but like, I mean, she never really has anything negative to say about you, so, like, she's never really done it to you, but there are many times we'll be out or something and she'll be like, oh, like, do this instead, or, like, say this instead. So yeah, like, I don't blame you for, like, that situation, but it's just, it was uncomfortable and it needed to be addressed. And yes, if anybody else is in that situation, 100% address it, because
talk about it.
Yeah, like, you shouldn't be made to feel uncomfortable in a setting in which you should be feeling welcomed.
And that's the thing too, because, like, it's just human nature to, like, automatically think it's negative. when you and I were walking through Serbia, and I think a lot of people didn't expect that I was also Serbian.
Yeah.
And
I did think a lot of these were negative.
yeah, and like they would like be staring at Nina, and then they would like say something to each other, like as we're walking, like as they're walking
just, like,
past
dirty
us.
Staring all these people.
Yeah, and then like as they would walk past us, they would say something, but then I'm Serbian and I can listen to them and hear what they're saying, and a lot of times they're like, "Oh my gosh, she's so beautiful," or like, "Oh, her hair is so cool," like, "Oh, look at her shoes," like,
yeah,
you know
and I
what
was
I mean?
getting so irritated. I'm like, why the fuck is everyone staring at me?
But it
like,
seems
leave me alone.
Yeah, because initially I think it's like human nature. Initially, you see someone staring at you, and you probably like, "Are they judging me right now? Like, what are they talking about?"
They're,
right?
like,
But
talking to somebody else and whispering about you.
exactly, but they were all like really positive because like, I mean, the conversations that I was able to hear, I was like, oh, like it's actually all positive, which I was shocked by too, because some people were like really fucking staring, where you're like, yo, are you serious? What are you looking at? You know what I mean? But yeah, it's an issue that we had for some time during our relationship, and then I had to talk to my mom about it so that it doesn't sound like we're speaking code, because automatically it just sounds like we're talking shit about you, because like you can't just switch from English to Serbian.
My favorite part though is that like you guys will be talking in Serbian, and then all of a sudden like you guys start speaking in English, but then I've already tuned out at that point because I'm like, I don't understand this. And then
my mom's like, why are you always ignoring me?
Yeah, she's like, why are you ignoring me? But I'm like, oh, I didn't realize I was being talked to because I just was tuning everything out.
It was all in Serbian.
Yeah. All right.
I guess that's it. I think that's it for the podcast.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to start rambling at this point if we continue.
I guess like if one of the questions is more geared towards like, what do you do if your parents are so against you dating from a different ethnicity? I think my answer to that, and I mean I've experienced,
no, I'm kidding.
and I've experienced some of that, I think, like as like my earlier relationships, and I think what I constantly tried to drill into my parents is, I'm very grateful that they brought me to Canada, but they need to understand that Vancouver is a very multicultural city, and they can't expect for me to be with a Serbian person because I'm not living in Serbia. Do you know what I mean? I grew up different. And
like the chances of you being with a Serbian person is a lot lower now.
Is a lot lower, yeah. So like for me to find something in common, like for me to cancel out everybody that's not Serbian just because like I need to make my parents happy is not. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to think about your own happiness. You know what I mean? And if I can't find anything in common with this one select group of people that are in this city that, you know, it's not that's the thing I kept trying to explain to them, like it's not like I'm back home like how they grew up where they went to school with each other. Do you know what I mean? My parents met in college. Like that's the thing, you naturally meet people through the situations and things that you're doing, and if you're in a country that's full of just one nation, that's what's gonna happen. You know what I mean? You're gonna be with that. And I mean, for me, what they needed to understand is I'm growing up in Vancouver, I'm going to school in Vancouver. How many Serbs are in my school? How many Serbs are in these certain interactions that I'm doing? You know what I mean? So I think that's something that you need to let your parents understand if they're so against you, you know, dating outside of your ethnicity. That's just, they got to deal with it. You know what I mean? And, you know, if they try to bring you back home, I'm so sorry it didn't work. But yeah, I mean, that's all I can really say. You know what I mean? Like,
I also just thought of another thing, and this fits in somewhere earlier, but I think a big reason why when I was growing up, I was around a lot more Vietnamese kids, like Asian kids in general. And I definitely had crushes on some of them. And like I was attracted to Asian boys. But as I got older and surrounded myself with more and more white people, that attraction faded. And I'm not really sure exactly what happened. But I think that I remember hearing, I believe it was Flex Mommy that was talking about this. She was talking about how for her, she dates a lot of white guys because growing up in white Australia, everyone that she knows is black is kin. Everyone that she knows that is black is family. And so I think like eventually over time, everybody that I knew that was Asian, that was, you know, like kind of the same situation as me growing up, that was like more poor or like whatever, like navigating this white affluent space was kin, was my brother.
My, like, family.
Yeah, and so it's like for me to be attracted to an Asian person almost felt like being attracted to my own brother. You know, like it was weird for me. And I think like I still do carry some of that today, and I know that that's a lot of internalized racism, and it's a lot that I have to unpack. Not that I'm looking to be attracted to anybody, you know, now, but I don't think that that's a unique experience to me either.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think my mom really wanted me to find like a girl with like, you know, black luscious hair and, is fair skinned, and I'm like, literally, you're just explaining yourself.
Yeah.
I'm basically like, you basically want me to date you, which
Yeah.
is just, it's kind of weird.
It's
to me.
layered. It's
But
layered.
like, I think like a lot of people tend to, right?
Yeah.
Because I guess they want to make their mamas proud or whatever it may be. I don't know exactly
Well, yeah, they say that like boys date their mothers and girls date their fathers, and to me that was just weird. So
yeah, we did the opposite.
yeah, we did the exact opposite. And I think, yeah, a big part of that has to do with the fact that I really felt like Asian boys were my brother.
Yeah.
And now I'm trying to work through it, and my mind is like it's all confuzzled and stuff. And I know that this is something that I've thought about before, and I've been attracted, like since then I've been attracted to Asian males, but usually they're mixed. Like it's very rare that they're like fully Asian. And to be fair, like this is why I can't stand it when people say like, oh, I'm not attracted to Asians, I'm not attracted to like black girls, I'm not attracted to blah blah blah. Like you haven't met every Asian, you haven't met every black person, you haven't met every, like
it's like stereotypical.
Yeah, it's stereotypical. It's also just like, why would you write yourself off to that experience? So I would never say like I'm not attracted to Asian boys, because like I haven't met every single one out there. I am sure that I will meet somebody that I'm attracted to, but like in my experience of like people that I had met, I just didn't find myself attracted to them. And a lot of them did remind me of kin. So it's just, yeah, I would never say I'm not attracted to Asian guys, because I don't think that that's fair at all. And because like there is a whole large demographic out there. Yeah. So yeah, I really hate when people say stuff like that.
I feel the same way. I feel like I could never say
at that point it's racist.
Yeah,
like when
I can't say
like
that I only like Asian girls or only like black girls, or like I can't say that, or like that I dislike. That's the thing. My brother too. He always like, oh, you dislike white girls. He's like, and I'm like, no, that's not true. Like I think white girls are really beautiful. Like
you just don't see. Finding a life partner is different.
Yeah, I mean, my only celebrity crush is Dua Lipa. Yeah. You know what I mean? There goes a white girl from my neck of the woods. Like it varies. You know what I mean? I'm not canceling out anyone based on their race. You know what I mean? It's just about whether we actually get along or not. Or I think that, beauty is in so many different, like, in different layers, bro. Like, it's everything. It's, like, who you are, what you do, and just, like, how you carry yourself. It has nothing to do with your race, so.
Yeah. So, hope this discussion was
helpful.
Entertaining. I don't know.
Answer some questions. I hope it doesn't sound like shit. Now. I know the mic is completely bust. I think I can see, like, just by the recording sound waves, they're, like, really high.
They're off the charts.
They're off the charts. And, yeah, I hope it's not too fuzzy. I mean, But
thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah, thanks for sticking around. And, that new mic should come in quite soon.
Don't worry, guys.
We got you.
So, until then, you can follow us at Neens Deens. I am at Your Girl Neens.
And I am Daniel's Day Off.
And we'll see you guys next week.
See ya. Bye-bye.